does a sea route to the Arctic change anything in a nuclear deterrence concept? The answer is I hope not, and I don't think so, because if you take as a given that these remain international waters outside of the universally agreed 12-mile territorial limit, and for economic purposes 200 miles EEZ, then there should be no national view on their use. And it is national views that deliver conflict and national views that deliver nuclear deterrence. And in a purely deterrent point of view, there is nothing to deter at sea. Deterrence is all about in the risk of damage to your country, your people, and your ability to lead. In terms of a direct impact on deterrence, I don't think so, except that it is another point at which conflict could occur between nations that are armed with nuclear weapons. With a plethora of nuclear capabilities that cover a spectrum of operations, albeit touted as broad spectrum deterrence, they actually give an opportunity for nuclear weapons to be used either in a coercive way or in an actual way across a whole range of conflicts. And it's very important to remember that when you looked at the 70s and 80s, or the mid-60s to the mid-80s, when nuclear weapons were a core element of NATO's response to the Warsaw Pact, when you looked at how NATO envisaged that, it was significantly less worried about nuclear weapons in the maritime environment. And the main reason, of course, is that fish don't vote. So you can kill an awful lot of civilians on land, you kill a lot of fish. That's not the same collateral problem. I'm being slightly cynical, but the willingness in exercise to use nuclear weapons in a conflict at sea is much higher than on land. And so if you are providing a maritime arena for conflict, and you have weapons that are at the lower end of threshold for use, that are low yield, short range, clearly tactically capable, the sea is an area where you can have such an exchange and you don't kill many people, and if you do, they're military. I think the likelihood of the opportunity for miscalculation, misinterpretation, or deliberate use of a smaller or shorter range weapon is much higher at sea than in the land environment.
Nuclear conflict is minimal in other instances and shouldn't be really, it shouldn't have a majority role up in the Arctic. The problem is that since this is new territory and there are new norms being established, what's going to be the flexibility of each state and what they're willing to actually accept. And I would say Russia would be pretty bold in this instance because they believe that they have a lot of claim up there. And so they can therefore push back on possibly United States setting norms, because they'll say that, well, this is an extension of our territory. This is an extension of Russia. And if you cross the line, then we have a right to defend ourselves, and we're going to choose whatever capability that we will decide. What will the United States accept Russia to do, and what will Russia accept the United States to do? That's going to all be discovered.
The Russian Arctic is home to much of Russia's strategic nuclear deterrence by virtue of its North Fleet submarines based outside of Murmansk. And so it's not difficult to imagine a national security episode occurring if countries such as the United States or others were to press a freedom of navigation operation in the region. That has been the topic of discussion at times.
The new sea route in the Arctic and just the new possibilities that can arise with the melting Arctic, I think that can affect deterrence, especially given other factors that are playing out. So we already have a kind of a loss in tacit knowledge and understanding and experiences regarding the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki and the Cuban Missile Crisis and everything else that played out in the Cold War. because naturally as time goes on, that's kind of becomes more and more removed from our memory. And then you also have a growing number, maybe slowly growing, but still a growing number of people who are becoming more interested in the option of low-yield nuclear weapons and creating nuclear weapons that they perceive can be used in a conflict without escalating it. I don't quite understand that logic, but that's their logic. And with those factors, and then the fact that you have the Arctic melting, you have this new region where countries can play, you have Russia already increasing activities in the region, and the fact that its nuclear weapons arsenal is stationed on the Kola Peninsula in the Arctic, a peninsula that Russia's going to want to protect at all costs. I can see just a growing, in a sense, recipe for disaster. In an ideal world, they'd all work together to cohabitate in this new area, but you never know how this is going to play out. And with the way that things are currently playing out, the future looks a little bleak.